Hello everyone and welcome to Web Design. For Tech Core, for the rest of this quarter, we are going to be learning all about web design, and I am so excited because especially right now we're spending so much time on the internet and looking at web pages. So this course is designed to help you have a better understanding of how those web pages work. So I'm going to start off by giving you kind of an overview of all the different parts of web design. But don't worry, you don't have to know all of this right away. The goal for today is just to kind of get you used to some of the words that I'll be using and get you started trying out a couple of things. So the interesting thing about web design is that it actually uses 3 different programming languages, which I know you're probably thinking sounds crazy right now, but we're going to start from the simplest one and then work through the rest of them as we have time. So these 3 languages are called HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, I like to kind of categorize them. So HTML does content. So any content you see on a web page, something like text, or a picture, or a link, those were all written in HTML. CSS makes content look cool. So it adds style. So without CSS, your text is just whatever the default text is, and your picture is however it shows up. There's nothing really exciting or cool. There's no color. But CSS lets us add those things. So CSS is style. And that's actually what the second S in CSS stand for. It is Cascading Style Sheets is the official name. And so things that it can add are things like color, can change the size of things, it can move things around. But CSS makes web pages look nice. Now JavaScript makes things interactive. So for example, the classic example of where you're going to need JavaScript if you have a web page is something like a game, right? If you want to play any kind of game. But if you want to have something where your user makes something happen, you are going to want to use JavaScript. And again, that relies on content. If there is no content, then there's nothing to interact with. Just like if there's no content, there's nothing to style. So we're going to be starting with HTML, which also happens to be the easiest one to learn. And then once we learn how to create content, we are going to start stylizing that content and eventually making that content interactive. Okay. So if we're talking about HTML, there's some important things to know about it. So first of all, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Now, it's important to understand what HTML stands for because really this second half I think is the most important. So a markup language. So language like programming language, and markup like you're putting notes in something. You are marking it up. So the way that HTML works is that rather than everything being like computer code really, you want to think about it as you are marking up some content. So for example, if I was starting to write an essay, right, so I would put my name in the top left corner and I would put the date, and then I might have like a title here that's like my essay, and then I would start writing this is my essay, right? And that's going to go on for a while. So what HTML would do to this is it would put some notes on this and say, hey, this right here is a title. This my essay part is a title. And so what it does is there are tags. There's basically little notes you put next to it. So this would be an H1, a heading 1. And then you have to put something so that it knows to end that heading, okay? And this is called a closing tag, right? So we have H1. So what this says is everything that is between H1 and the /H1 is a heading. Whereas this right here, this is a paragraph. So everything in between these two P or paragraph tags is going to be part of a paragraph. Normal text, not like bold and big like a heading would be. Okay, so again, the important thing to know is this is called an opening tag and this is called a closing tag. And they're all over in HTML. They're really everything. But this stuff in the middle, that's your content, and that's just written like normal. And I could do the same thing here. I could, if I wanted to, I could make these a different size heading, maybe an H2, H3, or I could just make them paragraphs. So I'm going to make these all paragraphs. So HTML isn't really about writing like big, scary code or anything like that. It's about using programming to help the computer understand what each part of the content you're creating is for. Okay, so hopefully that makes at least a little bit of sense, because the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go over to Google Classroom. And once you get here, I want you to look for the first announcement at the top of the page. It's not posted yet here because it's not going to post until tomorrow morning, but you should find a link to the DibLab website, and you should just be able to click it. I'm going to copy and paste it into a new window and open up the DibLab website. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to mess with the DibLab website because there's a really cool way to do that. And one of the advantages of doing it to this website is this is one that I programmed from scratch. So it's not super complicated or anything like that, and it's pretty easy to play around with. And you'd be surprised just how much you can change. Okay, so once we're all here, in the top row of your keyboard, look for the F12 button and press that. And a new menu is going to pop out from the side. This is called the inspector. And it lets you look at all of the code for the website. And like I said, you can do this to literally any website, okay? Now, there's a bunch of little down arrows. So if I just start kind of clicking through these, it'll start opening things up. And you can see, like, as I hover over things, then different parts of it get highlighted. So first thing I'm going to do is like, hey, like this title thing. I wonder what would happen if I changed that. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type, woo, and then press enter. And you can see now right here, instead of saying DibLab or DibLab website or whatever it said before, now it says woo. And you can do that anywhere in the code. So for example, this website, I don't want to say DibLab, I want it to say potatoes. Great. This website is apparently now about potatoes. And down here, I've noticed that I have some color, and it's kind of highlighting that area right there. I want this, I don't want that to be purple. I want it to be green. Oh, whoa, okay. Clicked on the wrong space there. I want it to be green. And I can actually see it and click through all these different colors. I want it to be lime green. So this area right here is actually your CSS. This is the cascading style sheets, and this is the HTML. And so what I want you to do is take like 5 minutes to just go through this and then change things around. Come join the Potato Club. That's not how you spell potato. Potato Club. Great. So really, it's super cool. You can try this, like I said, on any website that you find. And know that this only affects your screen. So if I were to reload this page, all of the changes that I just made are gone. This is just a way for you to experiment with things, but it is also kind of fun because you can mess with a computer screen and then send a screenshot to your friends. So take a minute, do that, and come back when you're ready. All right, so if you're here, I'm assuming you're ready to move on to the next step, which is actually trying to write our own code from scratch. So the first thing I want you all to do is go back to the Google Classroom and find the Programming Classroom link. So this is a little bit different than a Google Classroom. It's on a site called repl.it. And the reason I use it is because it lets me do computer programming right in the app, which is really wonderful. So I'm going to do this in a different tab just so I can stay logged into my normal one, but I can show you what this looks like. So I'm pasting that into here, and it's going to say this, welcome to 7th grade Tech Core, and what you're going to click on is this Google G right here. Don't make a username, email, and password, just click on the Google G and then sign in with your Wheeler account. This way you're not going to have to remember a new password or anything like that. So once you get all signed in, you should end up at something that looks kind of like this. Don't worry about all these things. You can see I've left it here, so it's still the same even though I've been using this program for a while. To find the actual classroom that we'll be working from, you're going to click on this little arrow right here, and then click on the student button, okay? Once you do that, you should get something that looks like this. You may have multiple classes, but most of you will probably just have one. And you're going to click on 7th grade Tech Core Quarter 4, and you should see, again, right now it's not posted yet, but there will be an assignment right here for you all to click on. Okay. Once you click on that, you are going to open up a page that looks like this, and I'm going to walk you through what each of these different things is. So starting from the right side, this is my information for you. This is the actual assignment for the day. There's lots of details. So we start out with our goals. I have some links for you here, concepts and terms. So these are like definition kind of things. And then scrolling down, we have programming to try. So each of these starts with an explanation of what the code is, an example of the code, and then a link to this awesome place called W3 Schools that has so much great information about how to program for web design. So you can always, and unfortunately it doesn't come in as an actual link, so you do have to copy and paste this into a new tab, and it tells you all kinds of things, and if you ever want to explore, there's tons of stuff here that you can look through. All right, so that is basically what's here. This is your actual code. So this is our HTML code, but you'll notice that there are 3 different tabs. This is the HTML tab, there's a JavaScript tab, and a CSS tab. We aren't going to be using the JS or the CSS tabs today. We're just sticking with HTML. So in this tab, in our HTML tab, I'm going to walk you through what this all means. But down here is our results. So this is where your website is actually going to show up. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, our goal for today is to learn the basics of what tools and languages are used to make web pages. Hopefully you already have a pretty good idea of that. And our second goal is to learn the basics of HTML, which is the programming language that lets us add content to our web pages. Make sure that you're always watching the videos for these assignments, because even if you feel like you could kind of pick it up from all of the information I have here, this can be a little bit overwhelming, and I will always be kind of explaining things and showing examples when I go through the video. We've already talked about these concepts, and we've talked a little bit about what a tag is, but we're also going to be talking about attributes and white space as we go through. So first, let's talk about what we have here. This is a tag, right? Hopefully you recognize that, right? It's got the kind of the greater than and less than right there. And I always say that we like to be obvious in computer science. So doc type HTML, what do you think that might mean? So doc is short for document. So it's a type of document, and the type of document is HTML. So this is HTML code. That's basically what it's telling us. Now let's look at these first couple of tags. This tag is an HTML tag, and this tag is the opening tag, and this one is the closing tag. Do you see that? How they kind of like frame the stuff that is inside of them? And everything that is inside of these tags is tabbed in. Now this is white space. That tab, same thing with like enter. Enter is white space, and so are spaces. One thing to know about HTML is it doesn't care about white space. So even though I just did all of those things, it's not going to change the way my website looks at all. So use white space the way that you would like to, but I highly recommend tabbing things in like this so it's really clear and easy to read your code. All right, so this is our head tag. Can you look and find which line the closing head tag is? Hopefully you found it on line 8, and you can see it even kind of puts a little square around it so you can see where it closes, which is a really handy thing to notice. Some tags don't have a closing tag, for example, our doc type tag and this meta tag, as well as the link tag. So if you don't, the vast majority of tags do have a closing tag, but there are some exceptions, and it's good to notice that. We can think about the head as it's literally a header. So it's just some information that is helpful for the computer to have. So for example, the information that it's using a specific set of characters. So char is short for character, so it's a character set. It's telling us to make the viewport or the size of the web page, the size of the device width, right? So the size of the screen that it's on. So make the page the size of the screen. Cool, that seems pretty reasonable. There is a title here, and if you remember from looking at the DibLab website, the title is right here. This, because of the platform we're working on, isn't actually going to change the title of the web page the same way it would if we were working directly on our computer. And this tag right here, the link, is connecting our CSS page, our CSS tab, to our HTML tab. We don't have to worry about that right now. Now inside of here, underneath head, and notice, body is not inside of head, but it is inside of HTML. So body is a bit of HTML code, but it's not part of our head. Most of the programming you're going to do is going to be inside of the body, right? Just like the body of your essay is the main part of your essay, so is the body of your web page the main part of your web page. This script line is something that just is connecting our JavaScript file, our JavaScript tab, to our HTML tab. Again, we're not using that quite yet. What we are going to do is start using our first tag. So this website that we're making, this is going to be a website all about you. So the first thing we're going to add is a heading tag, okay? So we're going to make an H1 tag. Now notice something really cool happened. I'm going to do that again a little bit slower. I do open. So that I do shift and then the comma key, and I type H1. See all those X's? That means something's wrong. It's confused because I haven't finished my tag. And then I hold down the shift key again, and then I press the period key to get the other side of that. And it finishes it off for me. If you need to know where the slash is, it's on the same button as your question mark. Okay, so now I get to write something between these two things. All right, so if we go back to our essay analogy, right, so I have the H1, I have the end H1, and I'm going to say my essay. In this case, I'm not naming the essay, I am naming my website. So I'm going to name my website Miss J's website, because remember, this is a website all about me. Okay, so here comes the fun part. Now I get to press the run button and see what my new website looks like. So I can hit run. Hey, look, you just programmed a heading for your website. Congratulations. Cool. So we've got our basic first thing, which is a title for a whole website, but I want to make another slightly smaller title, and this one I want it to be for my about section of my website. So I'm going to do an H2 and then type about and then hit run again. Look at that. Now I have a slightly smaller heading, and I can go H1 through 6. Basically, it gets smaller, you're the size of your heading. So H1 is biggest and H6 is smallest. So if I run that, you can see I have a much smaller heading there. I am going to stick with H2 though. All right, so now I have my about section. So now I want to add some normal text. I'm going to use this paragraph tag. So right underneath here, I'm going to do P, Miss J teaches at the Wheeler School. Okay, so if I run this, I will have my title, and then my subtitle, and then some normal text. Very cool. So now we know how to use quite a few tags. We have, if you count H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6, and then P, you now know 7 HTML tags, which I think is pretty good. But from here, we're going to learn even more. So the next thing we're going to do is an unordered list, which means like a bulleted list, where all the items on it are kind of even. It's not in order. We're not ranking them 1 through 7. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my list about things that Miss J likes. Now, notice when I run this, this creates a new line. So I have a line from Miss J teaches at the Wheeler School, line 13 of my code. And then I have a line for line 14, things that Miss J likes. If I were to, you don't have to do this, I just want you to watch this, put this into here, when I run it, it would all end up on one line. Even if I were to put 1,000,000 enters in here, it would still end up all on one line, because remember, HTML ignores white space. So if you want a new line, you have to put your content in a new paragraph. There are other ways to do it, but for now, that's what we're going to stick with. Okay, so hopefully this looks good. So now I have things that Miss J likes, and I'm going to make a list. So I'm going to start out by making a UL, an unordered list. Then in here, I'm going to make a list item, an LI. So I like dogs, I like cats, and I like programming. Okay, so now let's run this. So now I have a list of things that I like, which is super cool, and they're bulleted because I like dogs and cats and programming. I like all those three of those things, and there's no kind of ranking going on. Okay, so next, let's try the ordered list. So OL stands for ordered list. And then again, I'm going to use that list item in between, so LI. And I'm going to type in this case, oh, you know what? I didn't put a heading for this list. Okay, so let's go back under here, and in between my UL and my OL, I'm going to write a paragraph that says, let's have this be Miss J's favorite colors. Now, these ones are ranked, right? It's my favorite color, and then it's my second favorite color, and then my third favorite color. So I am going to say that my favorite color, this number one item, is going to be purple. And then my second favorite color is going to be pink. And then my third favorite color is going to be blue. Okay, let's run this. So now you can see I have a list with numbers next to it. And now one of the reasons that it's nice to use a numbered list is because if you could just do separate paragraphs and do 1, 2, 3 in front of each of them, but this is kind of nice because if you were to take out an item, you don't have to go through and change all of the numbers. Next, we are going to learn to use the bold tag and the italic tag, B and I. So these are cool because you can use them inside of other tags. So for example, in this Miss J's favorite colors section, I think that favorite needs to be bold and important. So I'm going to take favorite, and inside of my paragraph tag, I'm going to put favorite inside of my bold tag. So now if I run this and I look at it, favorite is bolded. I can do the same thing with an I to get italics. Look at that. Fancy. So we're already starting to do a little bit of styling, which we're not going to get super into today, but we're going to get a little bit of a sneak peek. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to add is a link. So a link, weirdly enough, I know we have a link tag up here, but to actually do a link like we normally think of it is actually an A tag. A stands for anchor. I honestly can't quite remember why it is an A. Or why it's called an anchor. And so what we're going to do is we do our A tag, and then we use an attribute. So an attribute is something that we put in the opening tag for a tag, and it gives the tag more information. Okay? So in this case, that information is where the link is going to go. So I'm going to connect this link to the DibLab website. So I'm just copying and pasting that link. And then, in between these two tags, I can put in the words for what I want to actually show up. So this href is the link where we want our link to go, or the place where we want our link to go. And this right here in between our tags is what you want displayed on your page. Because sometimes it's not really nice to have this big old long link. It's kind of nicer and looks better if you just have the words that describe the place where you're going to go. So let's run that. And you can see down here that we have a link to the DibLab website. If I click on that, hey, look, we're at the DibLab website. So there's actually also really cool ways where you can make links inside of a single web page. We'll talk about that another time though. All right, last but not least today, we are going to add an image tag because everybody loves a website with an image. So it is IMG, pretty self-explanatory, and then we're going to add an SRC, which stands for source. Now, for some of you who might have a little bit more difficulty typing, or if you just tend to misspell things sometimes, something good to know is that if I start typing S right here, do you see how now I have this source, SRC? So if I hit the down arrow, then it highlights that, and if I hit the tab arrow, then it finishes it. So it puts in that equal sign and the quotation marks for me, which is really great because it's one less thing I have to remember. Now, a lot of times, if you're working like straight from your computer, then you would find the image on your computer. In this case, we want to find the image on the internet. So I'm going to look up pictures of cats, and I'm going to go to images, and then I'm going to say this cat looks really cute. So I'm going to click on this cat, right click, and then I'm going to do copy image address. Really pay attention to this. Not copy link address, not open image in new tab, none of those ones. Copy image address. So that's going to give me a link directly to this image. So I'm going to come back and paste that in. And the next attribute we want to add, in addition to our SRC, our source attribute, is an alt attribute. And the reason this is important is because if for some reason our image is no longer there, so the person who posted it took it down, or for example, if we had a blind user, we would want to tell them what is there. So whatever we put inside these quotation marks is something to tell our user what's there if for some reason they can't see the picture. All right, let's close this. This is one of those weird tabs that tags that only has an opening tag. So we're going to go ahead and hit run. Let's see how it turns out. Oh, goodness. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a very cute but very large cat. So our next step is going to be to make him just a little bit smaller so he fits better on our page, okay? So let's see, we have instructions for how to do this over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some style. So now this is what I was telling you about the sneak peek into CSS. So anytime you see style, we're kind of cheating a little bit. We're throwing a little bit of CSS into our HTML. Because remember, I said that one thing that you can do with CSS is you can change the size of things. All right, so right here we have an example of how to change the size. We can either use pixels or percentages. I'm going to use percentages. I want this to be 50%. Oh, whoops, I forgot an important thing. Width to be 50%, and I want my height to be 50%. All right, let's see what happens now. Oh, that's so much better. Look at him. Sitting pretty, and you can see his whole cute little face at once. So your job for the rest of class is to just go through and play with this and make it as cool as you can. Make it all about you, all about the things that you like, because I want to get to know you all a little bit more. And when you are done, then there will be, mine has a next button, yours will have a submit button. Go ahead and hit submit, and that way I will be able to look at your code. If you have any problems anywhere along the way, send me an email, find me on office hours. They're from 1 to 2 p.m. daily, but if you're really stuck, let me know, and we can find another time to talk about this. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Bye!